original.
Hello and welcome to Web Crawlers, a podcast where we do a deep dive into some of our favorite unsolved mysteries. Each week we will introduce our topic, lay out our research and findings, reveal some conspiracy theories, and conclude with our own hypothesis. Who knows, we might even solve the case. I am Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Stettin.
And me, Maria.
Cool.
Me, Maria. Web Crawlers has a Patreon to get access to rewards, bonus episodes, shout outs, these videos that we're doing. Please go to patreon.com/webcrawlers. You can donate as little as $2 a month to become a bimbo patron. Also, super important, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
Very important.
Yes. If you've given us a review already, give us a review again, if that's even possible.
You know, I don't think it's possible, but if you want to create a whole new account and write another review, do it. What else are you doing?
You're doing nothing right now, literally. If you give us a 5-star review and you screenshot it and DM it to us, we will give you a shout out on the podcast.
Whoa.
Yeah, how cool is that? And I will send you a picture of my feet.
Oh my God.
That's more than worth it.
Is that a deal or what? And also, we have a hotline. The number is
626 604 6262.
So if you leave that was beautiful. If you leave us a message, we will play it on our Friday mini episode. Melissa, who are our new patrons?
We have Haneke B. That's a cool name. Michael B. Assuming that's Michael Bolton.
Yes.
Rebecca L. And Melinda M.
Amazing.
Welcome.
Thank you guys for being friends of the pod.
So today we're going to be talking about all things witchcraft, the different offshoots of witchcraft, what are witches, what are different types of witchcraft that can be practiced.
We're going to give you just like the layman's view of witchcraft, a general witchcraft 101 today.
In film, witches are often portrayed as evil, scary, wart-nosed women hunching over cauldrons, stirring up evil potions like Maria does every night before she goes to bed. Or
that's just a drink. That's just alcohol.
Or riding through the sky on brooms wearing pointy hats. But in real life, we know better. Witches are good, natural healers, worshippers of nature and the planet, and are mostly misunderstood. Plus, the real history of witches is complex, dark, and often deadly. So basically, we're going to give you a crash course on the occult.
We also have an interview with actual witch John Tenney.
Let's
get
into it.
In the last 15 years, more than 2,000 accused witches have been murdered.
But what do you really know about the witches who live among us?
What does it really mean to be a witch today?
So, Allie's grandma...
Oh, yeah. This is a story I wanted to tell.
Yeah, go. Your grandma was a Reiki master. What's this all about?
Yeah. Okay. So my grandma was a Reiki master, and which is like a Japanese like hand healing art, and which I also do. But she was like, I know there's 3 degrees of Reiki. So I know 1 and 2. And I'm like getting a refresher on it now. But my grandma knew up to 3, which is where you can actually like teach other people Reiki.
Oh.
Which is cool. And then my great-grandpa was a water dowser, which is also known as like a water witch.
What the hell is that?
Yeah. So what he would do is he would like take dowsing rods, which would either be like, it's like a metal rod, or sometimes they would use a branch. And I don't know what year this would be in. So if this was like my great grandpa, this would be like the 1800s, right?
Well,
No.
well, my grandma was born in the 30s, so great grandma would be well.
Right,
No,
the
it'd probably
late
be early.
1800s.
It depends on how old.
Yeah, it would have been the early. Yeah,
Early
it depends how old they are.
1900s. Depends on how old you're.
They wouldn't have been practicing in the 1800s. They could have been born in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, because my grandma was born in like 19, like 18 or something. She's dead now. So,
Right.
So my great grandpa. So,
Well, my grandma was born in 1921 and she's alive.
yeah, my grandma died like when I was 13. Okay. So anyway, so what he would do is he would take like a metal rod or like two wooden sticks, and people would call him to like different farms near him, and he would use like his intuition or like connect to nature or something like that, and like the rods or like the wood would like draw him to where the water on the farm or underground was.
Wow.
So that they could try to find water on the land. And
Where was this? Like, what part of the world?
it was in California. They
Oh.
were somewhere in California.
That's
I don't really
great,
know.
and it worked. Like,
Yeah.
that's what he was known for.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
So
Yeah.
what would it would just like take him to places or like move when he was
So he
like
would,
a metal
use-
detector?
Yeah, like a metal detector or like almost like a Ouija board when you like ask it questions and then it will like lead you away. So he'd be like, "Where is there water on this land?" And it would like lead him to where the water was.
Damn, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
cool as shit.
So like my grandma was like a healing lady, and then my great grandpa was what they call like a water witch.
Wow.
A water witch. I love that.
a water witch.
Yeah, weird, right? So there's a lot of different types of witches, and we're gonna have an interview with this dude John Tenney. Says he's a witch is a witch and a shaman,
Oh, okay.
and
He's
like
a big friend of the podcast.
huge friend of the pod, and he's also like a UFO expert,
Right.
and like a lecturer and like other things.
And he's from Detroit, Michigan.
Sick. do we have any ties to Detroit?
From Kalamazoo, Michigan. I
Right.
went to a lot of raves in Detroit.
I didn't even know Kalamazoo was in Michigan.
Oh boy. Where did you think I was from?
I thought Kalamazoo was its own state.
Yeah.
No, Allie.
State of mind.
It is a state of mind. Melissa, what kind of witches are there?
Okay, there's a lot of different witches. There's the traditional witch, and they take a traditional approach to their practice, and they often study what their ancestors or other folklore attached to witchcraft studied. So traditional witches, they want to honor the old ways of practicing their craft, and they often focus on working with local history and spirits of where they are or where they've come from. And while these witches do old history and customs in high regard, there are absolutely contemporary traditional witches who practice today. So they're like the basic bitch of witches. The basic
bitch of witchcraft.
Witches. Then there's the Gardnerian witch. So Gardnerian Wicca is a practice of Wicca that started around the 1950s because of this guy named Gerald Gardner, who's often considered the father of Wicca.
He's a witch daddy.
Witch daddy. Your great grandpa was a witch
Daddy.
So those
Witch papa.
Witch papa. Oh. Sounds too much like Papa Roach for some reason.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation. No breathing. Okay, I'm done.
Don't care if you're something. Haven't we sang Papa Roach on this podcast
I
before?
feel like
I don't
we
know.
have.
I'm having deja
I feel like
vu.
we have.
That's such a good song, though.
It is a good song. So those who practice Gardnerian Wicca have strong ties to nature, they challenge societal norms, and have many rituals that are the foundation of their practice. And in order to be a Gardnerian witch, you must be initiated, and members cannot initiate themselves.
Weird. I wonder who initiates them, like the coven, I guess, or
Yeah. So there's the sea witch. The sea witches feel connected to the ocean, the element of water, and they use a lot of water elements in their practice. They feel connected to water folklore, archetypes, and symbology. And then there's the kitchen witch. They are very home-based, often incredibly nurturing, and love to make their home a truly special and sacred space. That's interesting. I've never heard of a kitchen witch.
well, I hadn't either. And then I know this witch, and she's like was in my counseling program, and she considers herself to be a kitchen witch, or she's like she is a witch in a lot of different arenas, but she calls herself a kitchen witch.
And what do?
They're very nurturing. They make their home like a special and sacred space.
I think they practice mostly out of their home. So their home is kind of like a sacred altar, and they do most of their stuff out of their house. But I actually have a lot of questions, which is why I want to have a lot of guests, because I think there's a lot of like bullshit on the internet about what witchcraft is. So I want
There's
to ask, like,
so many different resources that I've read. Some of them contradict each other, and there's so much information out there. So
yeah, I wanted to have like real witches on. Yeah.
So, like, a kitchen witch, in my opinion, of what I've just skimmed over in the last 30 seconds,
Is like Ina Garden.
yes.
well, it's like it's like someone that like just cooks from the earth, like creates a home. It's like basically like just someone who like has a garden and cooks really good food.
Well, the woman that I know like does have a garden. She makes all her own food. She's like completely self-sufficient. She like all the meats and all the stuff she cooks. Like she has her own farm, and she does everything like in like a self-sustained bubble. But also she like makes her own like potions and like aromatherapy and like concoctions and like drinks.
I
want to
be a kitchen witch.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think you'd make a good kitchen witch.
Because a kitchen witch makes the home and kitchen their sacred space, incorporating herbs from the garden into their food and practice. Like, I could do that.
Yeah, and like people come to her for like potions or concoctions or drinks and stuff like that, special drinks, and she makes it all based on stuff that she's grown at her house.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
And then there's a hedge witch. So the hedge witch can cross the barrier between our world and the spirit world. So they jump the hedge or the boundary between the worlds, and they can do things like astral projection and communicate with spirits.
My grandma used to say that she could do astral travel.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Then there's the Dianic witch, which is only for women. It's called the Cult of Diana. And they practice feminist witchcraft. So they honor the woman in all her forms, the maiden, the mother, and crone. It was founded by Zuzana Budapest in the United States in the 1970s.
So that's like they honor like all the stages of life of women. Like the maiden
cool.
is like the youngest, the mother is like the next stage of life, and then the crone is like when you're an old lady.
Ooh, an old crone.
An old crone.
And then there's the kitty. Get off. What are you doing, kitty? Oh, God.
Oh, poor
Aww. It's maybe that's like your familiar. Witches always have a animal who's like their little spirit guide.
What movie is that from where they talk about their familiar?
Probably like every witch movie.
The Craft.
Maybe.
Then there's the Elemental Witch, and they study and practice based on the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water.
Yeah.
Earth, wind, fire. Nope. So then there's the Green Witch. They're the Garden Witch or the Forest Witch. They're connected to nature and Mother Earth. They use herbs, local plants, garden, etc. in their magic. So kind of like a kitchen witch.
Similar to the kitchen witch.
Then there's the Cosmic Witch or the Star Witch. They're into astrology, astronomy, celestial practices, planets, alignments of the stars, the moon, etc. And then there's one witch that we forgot about. It's called the Sand Witch.
Sand?
They study and practice the making of BLTs.
No, Melissa. That's not true. I love BLTs though. I could be a sandwich.
Oh, Allie's like, really? There's a sandwich?
I thought it was too.
Oh my god, that's one of
boy.
the we should ask each of our witch guests if they've heard of the sandwich. Oh my god, I'm crying. That's so funny.
Okay, so witchcraft is practiced differently across many cultures. So there's tons of different types of witchcraft. We're going to talk about hoodoo, which is also known as root work or conjure, and that was brought to the Americas by African slaves. Hoodoo is also known as Low Country voodoo in the Gullah, South Carolina Low Country. It's a traditional African American spirituality that developed from a number of West African spiritual traditions and beliefs.
Did you guys used to watch Gullah Gullah Island?
Come
Yes.
and let's play together in the bright shiny weather. Let's all go to Gullah Gullah Island.
Gullah Gullah.
Gullah
Benya
Gullah.
Benya. Remember Benya Benya?
Yeah, I do.
That big old frog.
Oh, yeah, the frog. So hoodoo is a mixture of various African religious practices, and it's more like folk magic-y. And so there's voodoo, which is often associated with pins and dolls and headless chickens, but it's much more complicated than that. It's a religion that originates in Africa, and those who practice voodoo believe that there is a visible and an invisible world, and that these worlds are intertwined. So death is a transition to the invisible world, so our predecessors are still with us in spirit after they die.
Yeah, I think that there's like a real emphasis on like your ancestors.
Yeah. So the predecessors watch over and inspire us. There's the key figures in this is the Hungin, which is the priest, and the Mambo, which is the priestess, or the Bokor and the Kaplata, which are sorcerers and witches. And, do you guys remember when Azealia Banks sacrificed chickens?
What?
Didn't she have them in her closet or something?
There's a video from a few years ago. She posted on Instagram. She had like this mask on and she had a sander. And she opened up her closet and it was like, there was feathers
I just
and
typed
blood.
it in. Oh my god.
And she was like, the amount of crap that's about to come off my floor right now, guys. Oh my God. 3 years worth of brujeria, which is, it's witch, I think it means it's for Spanish. It's witchcraft, I believe.
Well, yeah, because a bruja in Spanish is a witch.
Right. So witchcraft. She's like, yes, I got to scrape all this shit up. Real witches do real things. And she like turned on the power sander. And she was like sanding.
Oh my
like
god, this
feathers.
is crazy. She says my mother practiced white table magic. What's white table magic? Prayers
I don't know.
Prayers to the ancestors and praying to saints and praying for all kind of protection.
Maybe it's a white table magic. All I'm seeing is a Mexican white magic. Maybe that's.
Oh.
Well, yeah, it must be Spanish or Mexican magic because if she's using brujeria, what did she say? Brujeria.
And another type of witchcraft is called Santeria.
I don't practice Santeria. I ain't got no crystal ball. If I had $1 million, well, I'd spend it all.
Wait, before we get into that, I wanted to talk about some of the voodoo spirits or things that people pray to.
Let's hear it.
I found this cool article and it's on Ranker. So the first one is Papa Legba. And if you've ever watched American Horror Story, they talk about Papa Legba a lot in the American Horror Story coven. So he's the most well-known spirit, and he's considered to be the gatekeeper to like the spirit world. So he's standing between the crossroads of the human and the spirit world. And he's the first spirit who's usually like incanted in a voodoo ceremony. And he's often seen as an old man with injuries or deformities. He wears a straw hat, smokes a pipe, uses a cane to walk, and he's known as like a trickster.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
In American Horror Story Coven, they always offer him cocaine as like an offering. I don't know if that's a thing or not.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Then Urzuli Dantor. Urzuli Dantor is depicted as a black Madonna draped in robes with a crown on her head. She has a scar on one cheek and she's mute because her tongue was cut out to ensure that she'd keep secrets.
Oh,
She's
God.
known as a mother figure and a protector of children. She's also the symbol of romance and love, and she's a very high respected spirit. Then there's Baron Samedi. He's the most visually recognizable of all the Loa. He wears a suit and tails, a top hat, and he has a skull for a face.
That sounds cool as hell.
Yeah. He is a keeper of the spirit world and ruler of the dead. He seems similar to Papa Legba.
Yeah.
Erzuli Freda had 3 husbands, sick. She is associated with love. Yeah, so there's a lot of different, there's this cool Ranker article. It says all the different, there's a lot of them. So we won't go through all of them. And then it also says it has like the symbols that you can use
those are cool.
Yeah, to summon them, I guess. Okay, I've made my piece.
So Santeria is Cuban, and Santeria followers believe that one god created the universe and that the world is cared for by lesser divine beings known as orishas. So since Santeria is heavily influenced by Spanish Catholicism, it developed in the culture of Spanish-speaking countries and colonies, and the focal point for the growth of Santeria is in Mexico and Cuba. And then Wicca, of course, is as a modern-day nature-based pagan religion. And it's one of the fastest growing religions in the world, actually.
Wow, really? That's crazy.
Yeah, most observations include the celebrations of solstices and equinoxes, the honoring of a male god and a female goddess, and the incorporation of herbalism and other natural objects into rituals. And many Wiccans believe in reincarnation, and it can be practiced by individuals or members of groups, sometimes known as covens.
Sick. Okay, so next we have the Salem witch trials, which is obviously like one of the most famous things
Yeah.
associated with witchcraft. The Salem witch trials began during the spring of 1692 after a group of young girls in Salem Village, Massachusetts, claimed to be possessed by the devil and accused several local women of witchcraft. Elizabeth Paris, age 9, and her 11-year-old cousin, Abigail Williams, started having fits. They screamed, threw things, and contorted themselves into strange positions.
Ew.
Yeah, and a local doctor blamed the supernatural.
As you do.
As one does. Another girl, Ann Putnam, age 11, experienced similar episodes. The girls blamed 3 women for afflicting them: Tituba, the Paris family's Caribbean slave; Sarah Good, a homeless beggar; and Sarah Osborne, an elderly, impoverished woman. A wave of hysteria spread throughout colonial Massachusetts. A special court convened in Salem to hear the cases. The first convicted witch, Bridget Bishop, was hanged that June. 18 others followed, while about 200 more men, women, and children were accused over the next several months. Oh, interesting. I didn't know men were accused.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. By September 1692, the hysteria began to die down, and public opinion turned against the trials. The Massachusetts General Court later admitted the trials were a mistake. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Annulled guilty verdicts against accused witches and granted indemnities to their families.
So this only lasted like less than a year.
Crazy. I didn't know that. I felt like it lasted forever.
No.
What is this theory?
Well, ergot theory, I think we mentioned this like a while ago.
I literally just made you say it because I didn't know how to pronounce it.
It could be pronounced ergo, ergot, or ergot.
Okay.
But there was this study published in Science magazine in 1976.
That's like the most suspect name for a magazine.
It's a real magazine. Science magazine. And it said this fungus ergot, which is found in rye, wheat, and other like cereals, the toxicologists say can cause symptoms such as delusions, vomiting, and muscle spasms. So this could explain these strange afflictions that the people who said they were cursed by witches.
That's
so the
crazy.
whole like Salem witch trials, like everything could be blamed on this weird fungus.
Mushroom theory.
Yeah, the mushroom theory.
The mushroom theory
There it
strikes
is.
again. So there's also some lesser known witch trials. There's the Torsiker witch trials, which were in 1675 Sweden, where 71 people were beheaded.
Crazy.
There's the Fulda witch trials from Germany 1600s, where 200 people were killed.
God.
Crazy. And then there's also the Paisley witches, which was Scotland 1697, where an 11-year-old Christian Shaw said she saw her family's servant steal a drink of milk. She told her mom, and the servant Catherine cursed her, saying she wished that the devil would haul her soul through hell.
Oh.
A few days later, Christian ran into Agnes Naismith, an old woman reputed to be a witch. The next day, Christian got super sick with symptoms similar to those reported a few years earlier in the Salem witch trials. After 2 months of being sick, she finally recovered, but then got sick again. She would become as stiff as a corpse and motionless. Her parents took her back to the doctor, and she began pulling balls of hair out of her mouth.
That's like
crazy.
The Ring.
Yeah, ew.
Yeah.
She claimed that they had been put there by the witches. Soon she began to pull other trash out of her mouth, including straw, coal, gravel, chicken feathers, and cinders. Ew.
Ew.
During her fits, she was sometimes talking to the invisible Catherine Campbell. Her minister concluded she was probably possessed by witches. Her father went to the cops and said whoever was doing this to his daughter should be arrested. Christian named 35 witches, male and female. There was a trial. Of the 35 Christian named, 7 were formally accused, and they were all charged with murder and tormenting people.
Yeah.
They were hanged and burned. 2 of the 7 were brothers, aged 11 and 14.
Yes, this like 11-year-old girl was like just had all these people killed because like her family was rich and she was like, yeah, there's witches. Everyone's like, clearly she was like putting this stuff in her mouth herself.
Yeah, she was eating garbage.
Yeah, what a weird kid.
Yeah, fuck. I actually knew someone who used to pull out her own hair and eat it. And then she had to get it removed from her stomach.
What? Wait, hair doesn't...
No, it doesn't dissolve.
Wow.
That's why cats throw up hairballs.
Oh, right. Huh.
God.
Eating your own hair, that's like, I can't
was
think
an
of it. Like when
anxiety
you have a
disorder.
hair in my mouth, like that's the worst feeling.
It's the worst feeling.
People are fucking weird.
People are crazy.
Okay, so current day witches. So in Ghana, still, women are often accused of witchcraft and attacked by their neighbors. And because of this, there are 6 witch camps in the country where women suspected of being witches can flee for safety.
Wow.
So the witch camps, which exist solely in Ghana, are thought to house a total of around 1,000 women. Some of the camps were set up over 100 years ago. So the Ghanaian government has announced that it intends to close the camps.
Wow. You know where the sandwiches go?
Where, Allie?
Where, Ellie?
Subway.
Oh. Yep, they do.
Do you know that Togo's is like to go?
Wow. No, I didn't know that.
I always thought it was called to-goes.
You did?
I
Maybe-
never thought it was called Togos.
Is it not called Togo's?
I call it Togos.
I think it is Togos. I've never been there, but I've
never
seen
been
it.
there either. I'll type in Togo's pronunciation.
I don't know if that's going to be in the dictionary.
If anyone wants to goes or Togos.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, no one knows. My coworkers and I pronounce it Togos. Togos. But it's like two goes. Sorry.
So women accused of witchcraft are still being murdered. Thousands of women are murdered in Tanzania for being accused of witchcraft. They're beaten to death and burned alive. And there's this article from Inside Over that says thousands of Tanzanian women, in particular older women, have been murdered over the last 2 decades after being denounced as witches. It's linked to hundreds of years of beliefs where magic and superstition were to blame for death, sickness, and poor crops. To date, laws still exist in Tanzania banning witchcraft. And so 93% of people in Tanzania still believe in witchcraft, while 60% of the population still rely on witch doctors to rectify maladies associated with witchcraft, such as illnesses, drought, or death.
Okay, so we have John Tenney here, who is tell me if I get this right. You are you're a witch.
Yep.
And a shaman.
No.
Okay. Wrong already. You're you are a UFO studier.
Yep.
Okay, a lecturer.
Yep.
Okay, so I got almost them all right. So we're gonna ask you some questions about witchcraft, because we want to hear from like an expert and someone who actually practices. Before we get into it, where can people like find you and your expertise online if they want to read up on the stuff that you've done?
So my website is weirdlectures.com, and then I've tried to make everything else easy by doing like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everything is just John E.L. Tenney. It's just my name.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Melissa, what kind of stuff do we need to know from John? Our witch spurt.
Your witch spurt.
Witch spurt.
So how do you personally practice witchcraft?
So I have rituals that I do every single day. I have seasonal rituals that I do. I do a lot of ancestry work. So I do magic that kind of, instead of trying to speak to some larger omnipotent God, I stay really local and I try to do work with my ancestors, so my grandmothers and my grandfathers, and they were already helping me to be the person that I am before they died. So now that they're dead, they're just helping me from the other side.
Oh, interesting. And do you know anything about witch holidays?
There's a lot. So it's strange too, because most of the major holidays are pagan holidays to begin with.
Right.
They've just kind of been renamed. So, but over the past maybe 10 or 15 years, witches and the witch community have really started to say like, well, there's also Beltane and there's also Samhain, and they've created a whole new world of holidays that are witch oriented and witch specific.
Right.
But most of the tradition is based, at least in some of my historical readings, is based around the person that's doing the magic. So like my holidays are what are important to me. So I had a heart attack and died when I was 18.
What? What happened?
18-year-olds sometimes have heart attacks and die.
Did you?
What?
Well, first of all, no. But did you go to the other side?
So when people have near-death experiences, they have one of 3 usual experiences, which is the big tunnel of light and kittens and everything's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's the one you hear about the most.
Did you see demons?
No.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll let you
But
do.
I did have what's considered the darkest experience, which is you cease living and then become nothing but your own consciousness inside of infinity forever. And there's nothing but you, and nothing ever will be but you.
Oh, no.
And you don't have a body or eyes or mouth, so you can't scream or cover your eyes because you're everything and you're the only thing and you exist forever. And
Sir, this is a Wendy's. Wait, that's so scary.
No, that sounds like I don't want to hang out with myself for infinity.
Yeah, it's not great. But back to what I was saying, like that's a really important holiday for me because I obviously came back. And so instead of celebrating a new year on the 1st of January, I have a little witch ritual holiday, which is on January 21st, which is the day that I died. And a lot of witches and magic practitioners have days specific to them that means something, while sometimes also kind of glomming onto the overarching major holidays.
Okay. I have so many questions now that I know. Okay. So were you into spiritualism prior to your death?
To a certain degree, yes. So I had already started working with my mentor, who was a conspiracy theorist. He was a historical teacher at Wayne State University who specialized in political assassinations of the 60s and 70s. Oh. And he had introduced me to a group of people who were a little bit further in the conspiracy realm. So they touched on the metaphysical and the paranormal. And those people brought me in to meet people who were ritual magicians and witches. And so I was just starting to get into those layers. And then I died. And then when I came back, I always thought I was going to be a teacher of folklore. And so when I was going to college, I was like, well, I'm going to twist this and I'm going to start studying the occult and the folklore behind belief systems. And I just kind of spiraled out from there.
Okay. So then you had mentioned like so witches usually have their own, or like mystics or, people who are into metaphysics usually have their own holidays that are specific to them or meaningful to them. But what are like the main, so there's like Beltane, and you had mentioned, what was the other one you had mentioned?
Like Samhain, which is kind of pre-Halloween. But the majority, what's strange though, is that when you talk about the major holidays, what's going to happen when you have witchcraft conversations is you're going to have people that are speaking about European witchcraft specifically and leaving out Senegalese witchcraft and South American witchcraft and Chinese witchcraft, which are witchcraft.
Right.
But because the majority of people that you see online come from European descent, all of that other stuff gets brushed away. And so no one ever talks about the magical holidays of like the Chinese New Year, which is a huge magical holiday for witches in Asia.
Right. Well, that leads us into our next question. Oh, I'm monopolizing again. I get so excited.
Go for it, girl.
Well, how does witchcraft differ cross-culturally?
It differs in the fact that, first of all, the witchcraft that everybody is in Europe, the European kind of American witchcraft everybody's doing now, was really kind of created in the mid-1800s. And it was very elite, wealthy, rich people who were Rosicrucians and Freemasons. See, witches get mad at me for talking about this. The majority of it was born out of that because there were a lot of like pervy old people.
Sick.
And they saw it as a way to be able to break the very Victorian norms at the time and get naked. So you hear about sex magic all the time, which a lot of magic has nothing to do with sex. Now, sex magic can be super powerful, and people have realized that it can be powerful, but that dominates the conversation now because of people like Aleister Crowley and Osman Spare. So there were witches in the 1900s where it became all about sex. So whenever you read Liber X from Aleister Crowley, and when you start reading those books, it all talks about the wand and the cave. And those are all allusions to penises and vaginas. Yeah. And people are like, no, we have to have sex to do magic. It's not, because if you do look at like Senegalese witchcraft, which is one of the oldest forms of witchcraft that we know, it's as popular, accepted, and understood as a normal day-to-day thing. Anything here in America, like when you talk to someone from Senegal, like they know the eyes of the night, they know that the witches sit in the trees, and they know that the spirits of their ancestors walk among them, and everybody talks about it openly, and everybody practices it openly, and no one thinks anyone is crazy for doing it.
Yeah.
The difference, that's the major difference that you see with American and European witchcraft, is that people think that it has to be secret. And then you find a little group and you form your little coven, and then you don't talk about anything outside of it. When in reality, it's supposed to be about talking about your weirdness and talking about what you do to protect yourself,
right,
and growing a larger community.
What about like hoodoo, or the more known kinds, like, like hoodoo and voodoo and Santeria and stuff like that?
Yeah, so obviously some of these practices do have secrets because they're very localized and sometimes country or state or city specific, and there's family magic that they don't want to get out. But then like you have the traditional voodoo, which, obviously comes out of like the Atlantic islands. But once it comes into America, it gets mixed up with like Pennsylvania Dutch hex magic. And so like Pennsylvania Dutch hex magic gets mixed with voodoo, and then you have hoodoo, And so now you have people that are worshiping traditional African gods, but they're representing them as Jesus, Mary, Joseph, Moses, and Noah. And so all of a sudden you see this huge conglomeration happen, which is absolutely fine because whatever empowers you is what should empower you.
Well, that's crazy. I love that.
What can witches do? Like, what do you do? What do they have the power to do? It's kind of a general question.
You really have, so it sounds very, and it sounds very metaphysical and, lovey-dovey, whatever, but you really do embrace the fact that you're a part of the universe and that everything in the universe, I mean, that's the whole concept of as below, so above. Right. You are the universe and the universe is you. So you can do basically anything you want if you really believe it. It's like me, I do protection spells. I go to so many weird haunted locations and prisons and insane asylums. I have my friends call a force field over my house where no spirits can get in or evil things can mess around with me. But what's problematic with that is, so sometimes I'll try and astral project, but I can't get outside of my force field. So I'll just end up in my kitchen. And it's super boring to like jump out of your body and then you're just standing in your living room. But
so you're on a house.
Yeah, right. But I did a Facebook live stream with some friends of mine, and we wanted to do a ghost kind of seance session. So I had to pull the force field down on my house so that we could broadcast to have spirits come into my house because they're usually not allowed. And so when I pulled the force field down, the foundation of my house cracked, my crawl space flooded. And
what? Really? Shut up.
Yeah. And then the back part of my house pulled itself away and cracked the whole ceiling of my house.
What?
Oh my God.
Like within an hour of taking the force field down.
That's crazy.
Oh my God.
It was bizarre.
You should sell your force field to homeowners. Yeah.
See, here's a good thing. We talk about how magic works and how people do it.
Yeah.
So you go to businesses and people's houses all the time and who have force fields, but they're not calling them force fields and they're not calling them witchcraft because they'll have a mezuzah by the door.
Right. Interesting.
Right. And so that's what they're doing. They're creating a way to remember that this place is protected and guarded every time they go in and out. And they're creating kind of a psychic intentional force field around the place to keep out bad spirits and harm. So they're doing magic.
I'm so horny.
We should join forces and do, some sort of virtual seance. Wouldn't that be fun?
Ooh. Yeah, that'd be a little scary.
That'd be really cool.
Will you tell me more about the astral projection?
So I mean, anybody can.
Allie, let's see your hands.
I swear.
I mean, astral projection is fun. It's weird to walk around and not be in your body, but anybody.
Well, my grandma used to tell me that she could astral project, so that's why I'm interested in it.
Yeah, anybody can learn how to do it. There's some real easy tricks that you can do to kind of teach yourself real quick. So one of them is spend a week and a half every night before you go to bed, sit on the edge of your bed and close your eyes and just imagine as deeply and as powerfully as you can, just imagine your room and then lay down and go to bed and imagine your room again. Then the next day, do the same thing, but when you're laying in bed, imagine walking down in your steps or walking to your front porch. And every day, imagine further and further away from your room until you get to a spot. So let's say you're 5 houses down the street from where you started in your imagination, and you're just imagining 5 houses down. What you need to do then is, this is the kind of really creepy, weird part of it, is you need to go and look over a neighbor's fence in your imagination, look over the neighbor's fence and see what their backyard looks like. And then the next day when you wake up, go and look and see if you were actually imagining it or if you did finally pop out and go and look in their backyard. And you'll find
that's so cool.
You'll find the majority of times that you actually popped out and saw their backyard.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with that. That's so cool.
It's pretty weird.
You know what's crazy is that's a very Lee Strauss, that's an acting like that's Lee Strasberg kind of acting technique, is to like study something, or like to be able to close your eyes and see every detail of different like places in your life and stuff like that, and so you're able to like go to that place. That's interesting. That's I don't know.
Well, and that's, I mean, so like when you talk about the power of intention, or when people talk about whatever, The Secret or whatever, things like that, like the reality is that everything does exist kind of within you, because everything that you're seeing right now, you're actually not seeing it outside of your body. It's everything outside of you is just bending light and bouncing light into your eyes, and then it's going into your visual centers of your brain. Your brain is reconstructing it and telling you that you're looking at it outside of yourself. So everything that you're seeing is in your mind. You've never seen anything outside of your mind. So then that, Maria, you look a little freaked out.
I'm freaking out.
Maria's having a panic attack.
God.
You just broke Maria's brain.
How do I get out of here? How do I get out of my mind?
So that means you could, if you want to, if you really had the intentional power, you could tell your brain that there's a coffee cup there. And eventually you could start to see a coffee cup. And then eventually, if you become forceful enough, you manifest the coffee cup, and then it's actually there. And so there's a lot of,
but it's not though. Like I get it, but like how, at what point do you go like, I mean, can't you get lost in that fake reality of, it's like, yes, you can, because it's not, I mean, at what point do you get so good at it that you go, is this, it's like Inception, when it's like, is this real or is this not?
Well, then you bring up, so you're talking about occult and witchcraft stuff, then you bring up the concept of like tulpas and egregores, which is you use your mind to manifest a person or a spirit or a coffee cup. And the concept of an egregore or a tulpa is that it becomes real. You push it into this reality, and then it actually exists. There's kind of old diaries from monks in Asia back in the 1800s, where they didn't want to work in the rice fields anymore. So
is this like the orange thing?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Where they would manifest helpers to help them in the rice paddy fields. And the helpers would show up one day, and the monks had formed them out of their mind, pushed them into reality. And then after a while, those people that were created solely by thought gained their own consciousness, their own personality, and was like, why am I working for you? And they would leave and go out into the world. There's actually
That's
weird,
crazy.
if you guys want to find a weird Reddit subcategory, it's tulpas and egregores that people have created that are all talking to each other on Reddit.
Oh, I'm interested. Wow.
Have you ever manifested something?
Yes. It wasn't that bad because it popped away as soon as it kind of became real. I did a huge group experiment where I got people to help me manifest something, and they didn't know they were doing that. And then when it happened and everyone freaked out, it winked out of existence. It's really strange because a lot of the places that I go when I go ghost hunting, there's no ghost in the place. But over 50 years, the ghost hunters have manifested a ghost in the location. Everybody has thought, a little girl died in here, a little girl died in here, or a little girl died in here. And after 50 years, there's something in there acting like a little girl that died in there.
Oh,
wow. That's crazy.
But the people that are manifested, like the monks' helpers, so they don't have any history. Like you go like, when were you born? Or they don't know. They
just come into existence.
Wow.
But how? Oh my God. It's too much.
Maria, you're a ghost girl. You should know this stuff.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we didn't. Season 2 would have gotten into this, but we never given the opportunity.
But anyway, let me get back to witchcraft. I mean, so one of the things that I talk about at my lectures is, one of the examples is how much people don't understand that witchcraft and magic is already ingrained in our lives. There was a guy at the bar that I go to, and he had on his Red Wings hockey jersey, and he was watching the Red Wings hockey game. And the bartender had told him what I do for a living, which is fine. And the guy looked at me and said, "Do you really do magic? Do you really think it works?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And he said, "Well, that's just a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't work. You're being fooled. People are conning you." And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, did you grow your beard out last year for the playoffs?" And he went, "Fuck yeah, man." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, what do you mean, why? And I was like, did it help the team win? And he goes, yeah, we all grow our beards out and we win. And I go, oh, you're doing magic. You're doing sympathetic magic. Like, he thinks that him growing his beard out is actually affecting change in reality.
Yeah.
Right.
Did he kick you out of the bar?
No.
Do you say no one talks to me like that?
No.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But if you look at a ritual magic gathering, if you look at like OTO or the Golden Dawn, you have an elder person who knows everything that's going on. You have the initiates who are told by the elder what to do. They're surrounded by the uninitiated who sing and chant in unison. You have a hollowed piece of ground that has numbers, letters, and chalk all over it. And they try and make something happen. That's a football game. You have a coach, you have players, you surround them with fans, they all chant and sing. There's a piece of ground with chalk, numbers, and lines all over it. And they try and make something happen. Like a football game is just a giant ritual.
That's so true. That's a crazy way of looking at it. Do you practice alone, or are you part of a coven?
No, I practice alone. I don't play well with others. The first time, this is totally honest, the first time I was going to be initiated into a ceremonial magic group, and I realized the amount of like nakedness and stuff that was going on, I was like, I don't want anything to do with this at all.
No way. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Wow.
Don't need it.
Yeah, I get that.
Don't need
Don't
it.
need it. Don't want it.
Either. Don't want it. Maria, do you have any questions?
No, I mean, there's just so much, like,
I know.
There's just so much, but for the witch subject, I would just say, like, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a great, like, starter pack.
I know. I feel like
about witches.
I feel like we're gonna have, like, can we have you on for like 40 more episodes as we get more in depth on this?
Whatever you want. But I mean,
careful.
here's the starter pack.
Okay.
We, as children, we already do witchcraft. We say prayers, we make wishes, we talk to trees, we hug dogs, and we see the world in a much more holistic, natural way. And you can go outside and clench your fist during a rainstorm, and you can make it thunder. You can go outside and stare at the stars and make a shooting star happen. And as we get older, we think it's coincidental, and we lose the ability to do that. Being a witch and doing magic is just reclaiming what you already knew you could do.
I love that perspective.
Awesome.
I 100% think that I control the weather. I'll just say, I stand firmly in that belief about myself. John, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it so much.
Hope
This
you can
was
use some
so
of that
interesting.
somewhere.
Yeah,
We will use every drop of it.
And we'll definitely have you back on for sure. We should figure out something like a cool crossover type thing to do with, to bring some.
I'll try and figure out how we can all do a big seance.
Ooh,
that would be
so much fun.
I would love that.
I'll start thinking about
You're
it.
just a wealth of knowledge.
I'm a very boring old man.
No.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Web Crawlers. Melissa, if people want to find us online, where can they reach us?
You can email us at webcrawlerspod@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at webcrawlerspod, and we're on Facebook. We got a Reddit page. Yep.
And also, if you are a witch, a practicing witch, or know any information, or if you want to send us some spells,
Ooh.
that would be really cool.
Nothing bad, though.
Yeah, but don't put a spell. I don't want a spell put on me.
Only good spells.
Yeah, well, if you're a real witch, you like, if you're like a white witch, or like a real, if you follow like the tenets of witchcraft, you need like consent. I think you have to have consent before you can put a spell on someone.
All right,
good to know.
Yeah, and we don't consent. We don't consent to spells being put on us.
You cannot put a spell on me.
No, I said that I would like to receive spells, like via email. Like, email us a spell. Like,
yeah, but in court that wouldn't have held up if you would have had a spell put on you. and then you would have been
Who's going to court?
Witch court, a witch trial.
Witch court. Yeah, we're going
the witch court.
The LA,
we're going
LA
to witch trials. The LA witch trials.
Oh.
The Erios witch trials.
Oh, no.
If you have like a written spell, like, hey, Melissa, hey, Maria, hey, Allie, this is a cool spell I have on like how to get abundance and wealth in your life. Just
and I am not
it over to you.
And I'm not cursing you guys. This is just a spell.
Yeah, this is like the written spell if you want to do it yourself.
Right. Yes.
Here's the words to it. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
Capiche? Okay, cool.
Capiche.
So email us at webcrawlerspod@gmail.com if you want to send us a written spell, but you do not have consent to do spells on us. Anyways, I'm Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Stettin.
And I'm Maria Blasucci.
Bye.
Bye.
An Erios original.
Powered by Acast.